Hi, my name is Dave Sontag. I'm the Executive Vice President of Lumineu, and in this series of videos, we're talking about how our intellectual portfolio of photon-enhanced neurofeedback fits in with some of our cross-licensing partners. And now I want to introduce Tom Lewis from Real Health Innovations, who will describe how his company's population-based diagnostics can help move the needle on chronic disease, as well as some advanced diagnostics for other chronic diseases that fit well, especially with some of the dementias. Tom, over to you.
Thanks, Dave, and I appreciate what Lumineu is doing because we fix the terrain, and then when the terrain is fixed, we need to augment that recovery process, which is what you folks do very nicely. So let me explain how we fix the terrain, and I think it's really important that in anti-aging medicine that we provide evidence-based approaches so that we're not being marginalized by the standard of care and their so-called evidence-based. So we start off with a risk portfolio measurement. So we have a MIT Harvard-based health risk assessment, which gives a numerical score based on question answer couplets to give you then a letter grade, and we know how vast your risk portfolio is. The next, we do blood labs like everybody else. We also do eye tests, which really measure pathological changes rather than just physiological changes. And we call that output your chronic disease temperature. And we're looking for blood labs and even eye tests that show the earliest signs of smoldering chronic disease. And we assign one number so it's easy for the doctor, the patient, or the health coach to see where someone is on the health disease continuum. And lastly, we do advanced diagnostics because some people just don't get better in a coaching program or a more advanced medical program, and we need to figure out what's going on. Stealth infection, for example, is one of the things we're looking at. So quickly, if I can get my clicker to go to the next slide, is the process is this, and I won't go into this in any great detail. It's some nice colors, but basically it's a coaching/doctor EMR that is evidence-based and with artificial intelligence helps us rank based on outcomes processes in a process of continuous improvement. So doctors and anybody on our platform can advance in terms of their ability to create health. So our interface, this is a patient interface, not the doctor or the coach interface, is we think a pretty sticky GUI. We give you your profile grade, and an F means you have a lot of little risks to work on. Your chronic disease temperature, 103.1, which is based on the 98.6 scale. And an action plan, which are simply little risks to work on. And we assign actions to an individual, to coaches for that individual, and to doctors for that coach for that individual, that are then assigned to the individual based on their readiness for that particular change in activity. We meet people where they're at, and we help very effectively keep a contiguous path. Here's an example of the GUI for the individual where we can see down the bottom here some of their actions assigned to them that they're currently working on. It's a good bookkeeping process to see how their actions are moving forward. So the chronic disease temperature looks at normal labs as being abnormal from a chronic perspective. So we can see white blood cells here. Normal is 3,800 to 11,000. Our normal is 4,000 to 6,000. Anything below or above that range assigns a temperature increment to your overall chronic disease temperature. And it's based on mortality. And we keep piling it on, if you will, as we take more and more biomarkers into consideration. Now I want to segue into one very special biomarker. We look at lifestyle, we look at risks. Lifestyle begets risks. Risks beget change in physiology. Changes in physiology over time lead to changes in pathology. And the best place to measure this is in the eye. And it's actually very easy to do, or very easy to partner with an optometrist who can do this for you. Now, disease is simply pathological changes that have advanced enough that we now classify them as disease. But in the eye, we see disease real time, even in asymptomatic people, with about a 15, 20-year lead time. So the beautiful thing about the eye, particularly the retina, it's an outcropping of the brain. Any changes in the retina nervous tissue thickness, drusen, plaques, whatever, precede the same pathology in the brain by 15 years. It's much less expensive to look at the eye, and obviously the brain isn't completely consumed in the inflammatory disease, so we can move the needle on these healthy people and motivate them to change, because we can show them beautiful images of the disease process in progress in their eye. So this is an OCT scan, and it's both complicated and simple at the same time. But OCT is a tomography measurement in the retina. MRI is a tomography measurement. OCT is profoundly more accurate because of the wavelength of light used, and it's profoundly less expensive. I say OCT is about 4 orders of magnitude better than MRI when you consider price and resolution.
I think I paid $50 to have a local optometrist do mine, so you're definitely talking cheaper than MRI.
Right. I have doctors that'll run an OCT cash between $33 and $65. And the output is a lot easier to read and interpret than an MRI. So here we're looking at color coding. We're just looking at the thickness of the retina, which is a surrogate, and we also can look at the volume of the retina, which is a surrogate for atrophy occurring in the brain. And the different layers we see over here, I won't go into that, but relate to different conditions, from Parkinson's to multiple sclerosis to Alzheimer's. So it's really profound. But the important thing is, on the scale from lifestyle to disease, we're much closer to the disease part of the continuum. So hopefully we can motivate patients to make viable changes in their health. So why your CDT? And we include the eye in that. Cataract, for example, is a deadly disease. Right now, no one's appreciating that. But here are 3 gentlemen in the primes of their lives died suddenly. Why? Because we're not measuring. They had good Framingham scores or whatever. The chronic disease temperature is designed to glean those who are on a chronic disease path, but who would otherwise look healthy with normal labs. And of course, we catch those we can measure how profoundly sick people are that do measure as sick in the normal labs as well. So here's the connection between lifestyle and your chronic disease temperature physiology, and with the eye being part of our chronic disease temperature measurement, your pathology. And if we plot the living profile grade, A through F, versus your chronic disease temperature, 98.6 plus, we see an essentially linear plot, rise over run equals 1. Anybody I present this to recognizes that they have control over their physiology and pathophysiology by improving their risk portfolio. It's as simple as that. And the chronic disease temperature is really a mortality indicator, because that is the endpoint that we use to establish adding a temperature increment on to any physiological or pathological measurement. So that's our program, David. It uses, I think, the best of breed science. I'm an MIT PhD medical scientist, and it's all about the measurement, objectivity, and evidence-based medicine. So we can augment anybody's program with the chronic disease temperature, the living profile, and assist them in measuring end-stage pathophysiology with the eye measurements. That's our story for today.
Great, Tom. That's exciting stuff. You know, in 23 years on active duty with the U.S. Air Force annual health risk assessments, I got to say, since I retired and have been following my own health with your metrics, stupidly simple, but probably in better health than I've ever been in my life. And it's exciting to see how we can partner this with some of the technologies coming down the pike. So looking forward to a lot of more exciting things. Thanks again, Tom.
Right. Thank you very much, David. Take care.